But then a song like You Need to Know, um, actually, I wrote that earlier before the disillusionment and reveal for this same person that I was in relation to and working with creatively. And I wrote it, so I thought, for him, as sort of like a gift of compassion and wisdom for him. And then as life happened and things, that fell apart, and I continued on my path, then I was listening to that song in the studio and I was like, oh, oh, this is for me to
Yeah.
be hearing, and I didn't consciously write it for me. So I mean, and I sort of believe in the greater spirit of whatever, and that was no mistake, but I was not a conscious participant.
Maybe the best reason to write songs is to have them be a gift to yourself at a later date.
Well, it is a gift I am very grateful for. I have listened to that song a lot. It has been balm for me often. And I know it isn't just for me because I do know other people who have that one on pretty high rotation.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean those are the best gifts when they not only soothe and feed and nourish you, but everybody else who needs it.
This is my favorite song on your record, and I'd love to talk about it a little bit. One of the things I find it both inspiring and impressive. So if it was just impressive, I would be almost disappointed because things that are impressive can be shallow. But this is not shallow. You do a nice trick with this song, and it actually helps. It works. You need to know is something you say to people when you want to say, I need to tell you this. You need to know means I need to tell you. And in this case, you're saying you need to know that, the only way you're ever going to find the love you're looking for is to love yourself. You need to know that. I need you to know that. You need to know. But you need to know also means that no one can tell you this. You need to know it. You need to know. And I find that marvelously profound and so relevant to myself. This is what I'm going through, trying to learn, that you don't wait around for someone to tell you how wonderful you are. You need to know it inside. And that's the only way you're ever going to be satisfied with who you are and what you do. Other people can love you, but it's never going to be a substitute for you knowing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
now I've talked about your song, but that's why I love it. It's very relevant to me, and it is my favorite song on the record. And thank you for writing it.
Hmm. You are welcome. Thank you for loving it.
Would you like to talk about some of the other songs I found interesting?
Yes.
Okay.
You should do the
Uh,
talking now. Why don't you talk about my record?
Yeah, let's talk about your record. I found Walking in a Dream very interesting. Um,
Ah.
Here we have a 1940s jazz swing tune, but the lyrics really go deeper than that. It's a little like, you know, having a Twinkie in your hand and inside is like a steak or something like that. It's like, what's going on here? There's something in this song. You're talking about, a metaphysical idea,
Mhm.
that maybe this reality that we're experiencing is not everything. And that's a cliche idea, but it doesn't sound cliche when you're talking about it. Maybe this thing that we find so solid is a kind of a dream. And if we realize that, perhaps we can make a deeper connection to those we might have lost. Um,
Hmm.
that's pretty profound stuff for a, you know, 40s
1940s jazz
swingy song.
swing tune.
Why the uh
Yeah,
why the juxtaposition of something that sounds kind of funny and maybe even corny and this profound idea?
that's just how it came out.
Yeah, that's what the song wanted.
It's what the song wanted. Well, it's what the words wanted.
Yeah.
The words were coming with the melody on that. Um, in fact, I remember the beginning of that song. It was actually an online during COVID songwriter uh, event, like Zoom event or whatever, and they gave us. like very little time to come up with an idea. Like come up with an idea. Okay, A, B, C, A, B, C. And then that's where that melody and the beginning of the words, the hook kind of kernelized in my brain and in my sort of inner ear. And and then as I and it walking in a dream, um, what if we're walking in a dream? Like that was the hook that came to me. So, and I am somebody who reads and tends to believe in, like, I don't know if you're familiar with um, The Four Agreements, that book, or the
I think
um,
so. I may have read it. I don't remember it at the
Ruiz,
moment.
Don Miguel Ruiz, who is a wisdom, Toltec wisdom teacher. And he's written several books, but that one is the first one that I read, and it opens with the idea that this is a dream, that this waking experience that we're having is a dream, and it is merely a reflection um, from things that we're mostly doing unconsciously. So this idea of being in the world and the thoughts that you're thinking and the beliefs that you hold and everything you've seen and heard and learned and been absorbed into your system is creating this story that you're creating for yourself, or well, co-creating. I mean, I don't think we're isolated, but so yeah, so that is an idea that lives in my system, that I live with daily, that I try to be more conscious about, and it seeped into my songwriting in this particular case.
Yeah.
And um I don't know, I was also thinking about a play. I've heard it said that life is a dream. There's a play called Life is a Dream. Um, it's a Spanish play. I'm forgetting the playwright. Anyway, it's a fascinating play. Um, it's about this man who has a twin, and they're of royal birth, and the one of the twins gets to be the king, and the other one gets locked up in the tower, and they keep a mask on his face because they don't want anybody to know that he's the identical of the king. And through whatever set of circumstances I don't even remember anymore, the one in the tower ends up being released, and the one on the throne has become a tyrant. And so it's this sort of examination of these two different personalities. And anyway, it's a fascinating, fascinating play. But that was sort of in my system too when this song was coming through, and that idea of different realities and maybe different timelines existing concurrently but not being visible. And I mean, I don't know. And why does that end up being a 1940s jazz swing tune? Because it did.
Yeah.
Because that's how it came through. Because that's
Yeah.
what it wanted to be. It's what the song wanted.
Well, what song could contain these ideas? It might as well be a 1940s swing tune.
Why not, right? And there
Right.
was sort of a delightful kind of juxtaposition, I think, for
Yeah.
me, in this light doo-dee-doo stroll down the street. Like in my mind in the show, in that number, that's a number that exists in my mind where, like, somehow through whatever theatrics, um, I might be just like doing this sort of strolling, dancing thing, or whomever the lead person is. Meanwhile, there's like contortionists and aerialists and weirdos coming from out of the ground and coming out of the trees and like, doing somersaults, like walking by in these bizarro, like circusy fantasy. Maybe somebody like rides a bicycle upside down across the top of the stage, or, who knows, stuff like that
Right.
to sort of illustrate not only the craziness of the idea, but also the potential beauty and just like who knows what this is? It could be whatever we want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's neat. Let's move on to a different song. And the song I'd like to talk about next is Kryptonite.
Mm,
I have a lot of interesting things to say about this one. First of all, I find it fascinating that you name the song Kryptonite, use it in your chorus, and yet you don't refer at all to any of the things that Kryptonite is about, the world Kryptonite is in. There's
mm.
no reference to Superman at all in this song, just Kryptonite. And I find that interesting because I'm not so sure that today everyone knows what Kryptonite is. Like 50, 60 years ago, Superman was omnipresent and everybody knew Kryptonite. But if you don't talk about Superman now, people are like, well, I've heard of Kryptonite. I kind of know what it is. So for me, it was a little interesting that you'd use a cultural reference, but then strand it from its reference.
Yeah, I guess I sort of feel like if you build it, they will come, you know, like if somebody listens to that song and they don't know what kryptonite is, they're going to look it up.
Uh-huh.
They're going to find out.
Do you think you
That's a
were
good
maybe
thing.
pushing them to do that as a way to get Faulkner-like engage them?
I'm not sad if that happens.
Right.
Um, I mean, I personally think rise, people rise. And if you expect them to not rise and you give them everything so that they don't need to, they don't.
Hmm.
But if you set it up so that they have an opportunity to engage and be curious and expand and learn and grow, then a lot of them will. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And then that deepens their experience. Um, I don't like to spoon feed people. And I mean, for me, kryptonite, and for you, kryptonite is like a reference that's, we know what that is. We know
Yeah.
what that is. No question about it. And considering, I mean, I don't even know how many Superman movies there have been now. I have completely lost track. There have been so many.
Yeah.
So, and certainly the whole like, well, I guess DC Comics isn't quite as omnipresent as Marvel, but like what percentage of our movies is based on cartoon characters from like superheroes? Like
Right.
most of them, I think, the majority. So, um, I don't know. I guess I sort of felt like it was a fairly safe stranding
Uh-huh.
in terms of like not feeding them. What is kryptonite?
Well, there's a more insidious interpretation of why you didn't mention it, and I'd like to share it with you. My literary mind got to work here.
Hmm.
And so the funny thing is, you mentioned kryptonite, which is Superman's only weakness, right? It's the only thing that can bring him down. And at no point in the song do you mention Superman. And what this says
Not
to
about.
my literary mind is that you're implying that you're Superwoman, but not
Hmm.
saying it.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So, like I said, people have to figure out in a weird sort of way that you're Superwoman and either not admitting it or not. You kind of see what I'm saying? You're kind of hiding this identity you have, even though you're stating the weakness and saying, when I'm with you, it's like kryptonite, but you don't actually tell people what that means, that you have the thing that you have the only thing that can bring me down. You're not saying that in the song, you're just implying it. And there's a kind of denial in that, or, something. There's something subversive about that whole. The song has a subversive element to it in that way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I like your interpretation. That is not what I had in mind, but I
Right.
like it. I like it a lot. This is the great thing about art. You know, you make something, you put it out in the world, and people take from it what they do based on their own, where they are and their own influences and their own thoughts and feelings and blah, blah. And I love that actually. I mean, I think maybe in part of my brain there was some kernel of recognition that like that what you've just said about kryptonite is the only thing that can take me down. Therefore, I must be somehow related.
Yeah.
But I was also using it metaphorically, of
Well, of
course.
course.
you know, but yeah, I love the literal possibility of it. That's fun.
Yeah, interesting. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I do something weird in a song, I often just let it be, and then it means more to me later. I find, oh, now I understand what that means. Now I understand why I did that. You
Mhm.
know, I was telling myself something that I wasn't ready to understand.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and that brings us back to, the idea of writing a song. It comes through how it comes through, and then later on you revisit and you're like, oh,
Yeah, right. It's like a
talking to
waking
myself,
dream.
talking to myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Kryptonite actually was referred to as the weird song for a good amount of time. That's one of the ones that I did largely in the box with Tom.
Yeah.
Um, and I pretty much like Luke sort of helped me put together a kind of demo version with the vibe and the rhythm, and the rhythm, the like I had this, well, I referred to it as, and maybe I don't know, can I swear on your channel?
Oh, sure. Hell yeah.
Are all the words okay? Hell yeah. I referred to it as a fucked up Bo Diddley,
Yeah.
um, because I had this like herky jerky rhythm that just was like, this is what this song wants. This herky jerky, weird rhythm that makes you feel out of balance, unstable. So I had that and I had the songs and I had a very clear, very, very clear feel of how I wanted it to feel. And then, I took it to Tom with what Luke and I could cobble together and we called it the weird song. And he was like, "Oh, I love weird." And I was like, "Can we find a weirder sound? Can we put a weird sound here?" So, yeah, that's a fun one. I mean, it's hard to have a favorite because I really am very, very proud and I'm a proud mama on this whole record. I really love this music that I made. I really love them all. But that one is sort of like my genius little funky stepchild. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's like that came through me, but it was meant for somebody else. Like I got somebody else's mail. I don't know. I love that song.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Oh, it happens to be called Move On.
Hey, there's a
I
there's
like Move On because it's one of the rare honest breakup songs. It's
yeah.
not saccharine. It's not consoling. It's, you know, you need to move on. Period. Stop. Pull the
Yeah.
plug.
Yeah. Um, I actually wrote that chorus. That's another one that came together in the studio, actually, that kind of got written in the studio. The chorus, which again, I am a maverick heretic artist. The chorus doesn't show up until the end of the song. Um, and it's that the only way out is in, the only way around is through. Don't focus on the storm that did the damage. Um, that came first. That part came to me as its own thing. And it lived in my folder of ideas that need to be developed into songs. And and then, I don't even remember honestly exactly how it all came together, but it is absolutely a breakup song. It is also just shit happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes your life looks like somebody detonated a bomb and there isn't anything to do except just, yeah, move through it.
Yeah.
Pick up what you can pick up, leave the rest, and move on. And yeah, I love that song. That one also lives in my mind as kind of an oddball, partly because like broken rules, like the chorus doesn't show up until the very end of the song,
Yeah.
you know. And it's just so it's such a story, like it's like little vignettes, and then you get to, and the point is, here's the chorus. Yeah. That song almost didn't make the record. but then it needed to be there. Why?
Yeah, why?
14 songs is a lot. And you don't want to like it's like you don't want the dinner party to go on too long. You don't want people to like fall asleep in their dessert. So I mean, just in the creating of it, I think the record is about 50 minutes, maybe a little less, 49 minutes, something like that. That's and to want people to listen all the way through as a journey, like that's asking something of your listeners. That's asking like, give me an hour of your time to take this ride, which for people of our generation is not that like crazy. But for people of the current, like young 20s, 30s, like, what? Like, don't look at my phone. Like, sit down for a whole hour and just listen to a thing and don't fiddle on my phone and don't be on social media at the same time and don't, like just take that one ride. Like, there are no rides in Disneyland that are that long. Like, there's
There
a
are
reason
lines that are
that
that
songs.
long.
That's true. That is true. But you can look at your phone while you're in line.
True. You could hear your entire album in one of those lines.
That's true. Yeah.
And yet it did make the album. That's is just an interesting question is why not? It did make the album. Why?
Because it felt like what needed to be said at that point. Like the way I sort of view the album is there's this sort of like the first River of Oblivion is the invitation to a human life. Like come into human incarnation, drink from the river of oblivion. Maybe you made a soul plan. I tend to buy into that idea. But then you forget it. And then you enter with innocence, and that's beautiful day. This sort of innocent, like wide-eyed, like, hey, I'm alive. That's awesome. And then, and then life starts to happen. And there's yay and there's ah, ouch. And so there's a certain amount of like that. And then there's the fall, which happens um, with gravity and to be loved. That's sort of the point in the record where I kind of feel like, okay, we're hitting bottom, where we're just like, I came here for something and it's not happening and I give up. Um, and then we get the message of you need to know and like we start getting messages um that are maybe it doesn't look the way you wanted it to look. Maybe it's never going to look the way you thought you wanted it to look, but you're not the only one creating this for you. And there might be a bigger possibility. And if you can release and surrender into that, then, then something different, but probably better can happen, and then we get into be big.
Yeah.
And we get into and then the final song with the dream of flying sort of for me feels like the retrospective of okay, we came here thinking this one thing but something else happened, but it was still awesome. you know
That was my next song. And there's a subtitle. It says features Luke Halpin, featuring Luke Halpin. Now,
oh yeah.
you feature him throughout the record and you collaborate with him throughout the record. And yet in this song, you call him out as a collaborator. What was the nature of this collaboration that made it special and different?
Well, partly it's that his vocal is very present. It's almost a duo the way that the vocals are in that one.
Hmm.
And that song actually was written quite a few years ago. Um, and we have done it in Bettman and Halpin concerts. Like, of all of the songs on this new album, that song is the most familiar to the Bettman and Halpin crowd because we've been sharing it with them on occasion for several years. it wasn't produced into its recorded form until, this project, but it existed. And I think that's part of why I call him out is because it really felt like it was a Bettman and Halpin song that migrated to the quote solo project, but Luke is still so present in that song. So that's why. I mean, technically, I guess he's fairly present vocally in Beautiful Day as well. Maybe not as obviously, but he's certainly there. And that's another one that's kind of been around for some time. We haven't played it much live, but yeah. Yeah, there were a few songs that found their home in this project that have been looking for their home for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So people ask me how long it took me to write this song, and that's because of that. It's sort of an or to write this record. It's kind of an unanswerable question because it depends on the song.
Yeah. Well, we've touched on almost all of them, I think. Is there any song that we didn't talk about that you'd like to talk about?
Hmm. I don't even remember what's on the record.
Would you like me to call them out to you?
Sure, sure.
Well, River of Oblivion,
Yep.
Beautiful Day,
Yeah.
Walking in a Dream, Ain't That the Way, Love
Oh,
Isn't
ain't that
Lie,
the way?
Kryptonite. Huh?
Ain't that the way?
Ain't That the Way? Santana meets Jennifer Lopez.
Oh, I love that. Yes, please. Maybe someday there will be a video that is Jennifer Lopez meets Santana.
Yeah.
That one. I actually, when I made the music video for Beautiful Day, my intention was to make a music video for Ain't That the Way. But as
Oh,
we talked about what my vision was for Ain't That the Way versus Beautiful Day, Ain't That the Way seemed more expensive and harder to do. So we went with the easier one. Um, but yeah, that vision still lives in my system too. Yeah, that song, I don't that almost also feels a little bit like I got somebody else's mail, except that you know what? I want to keep getting other people's mail. I loved writing that song. I loved writing Kryptonite. I loved playing in these genres that I arguably have no business being in. Like I love that about being an original artist. And maybe perhaps that is actually the the payment for being an independent artist because I don't know if it would be possible if I had a big old fancy label and I had like all kinds of expectation on me sounding a certain way. Probably it would be a lot harder for me to be this wide open and creative and just be like, well, this is what the song wants. I don't care that it's a genre that I've never written anything in before and I don't know how I'm going to market it and I don't know where it's going to land in the world of music. Um, yeah. So, that's kind of a nice uh full circle possibility.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of my payment. I get to do what I want.
All right. Well, you mentioned making videos. This is something I'm curious about. I've never had the ability to make a video at the level of production, the quality videos you've made. I'm very curious about that process. I see them, other artists, both big and small. You don't have to be a major star to make a really nice video. Talk about that.
Well, the most recent video is Beautiful Day, which I'll just say it just came in as a semi-finalist in this AIFF Paris Film Festival, which I don't actually know what AIFF stands for, so sorry about that. But so that's awesome and feels great. That music video, um, I feel like I stumbled so luckily into this woman who's a choreographer in town who she had actually been pointed out to me from a couple of different acquaintances, shared people. And her name, like I'd actually tried to get her for the music video that I did a couple of years ago when we're together with which was that sort of Fred and Ginger vibe with a song from Luke and my last record, Timeless. Um, but so this one, I reached out to her again after multiple people were like, well, you should really check out, Piper, check out Piper. She's amazing. And she got back to me and we talked and I pitched her the whole vision, the whole show, the big show, everything. And for whatever beautiful, lucky, maybe soul contracty reason, she was like, I am so on board. Yes, I don't care about your budget. Let's just make shit happen. So it was thanks to her that I met the director and filmmaker who I worked with, who also, luckily, for whatever reason, was like, sure, I'll work for cheap. But who's a real deal, you know? He's like, he knows how to make it look real. He's the real deal. He does real things. Um, so, it still wasn't cheap. For me, it was like, okay, that's the most I've ever spent on something I'll probably not make any money from ever. But it was so worth it. It was such a joy. I mean, of course, things come up in any kind of production like that. It was multiple people's schedules, getting permits. Things got wonky. We had to reschedule the whole thing, which was tricky, but it worked out. And fighting for the shots you want versus the shots that tell the story. And do we have enough time? And is it going to rain? And all the things, all the things. But I just feel so blessed to have worked with them both, to have, made their acquaintance and perhaps even friendships, and hope to be able to work with them again. Going forward, we'll see. Um, but yeah, it was a joy. And also just in the sort of first conversations with just the three of us, all three of us sort of showed up as basically producers because we were both willing to bring what we could bring, including our own contacts, including pulling strings and asking favors to make it happen. And it would not have happened with all three of us without any one of those. Um, but we all agreed that the intention and the whole point was just unabashed joy. Like that was the point. And I think we succeeded.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, yeah. It was really a pleasure to get to do that. And I hope I get to do more.
Yeah, me too. Well, you've described yourself as being somewhat burnt out, and this is a
Yeah.
bad question for somebody in that situation, but I'll still ask it. What next?
hmm Vacation. Um, maybe lots of vacation.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, I don't want to say I'm plagued by the vision in my mind of what this music wants to become in terms of a theatrical experience, but it's not going away. So,
so then you're recovering yourself for when you can pick up and continue this vision.
yeah, unless something else comes along, you know, um, I don't know. I hope to travel and introduce myself to a couple of beautiful oceans and sit on some beaches and just get really away from all of the pressure and the should and the identification. Like I think I need to find out who I am separate from what I create and whether or not anybody notices.
Wow.
Um, if I can get that clear for myself and good and like just happy, then I'll be in a better place to keep pushing that boulder up the hill. Um, so that's what's directly next. Just that, just yeah. But yeah, like I said, the vision has not gone away. It has not gotten less annoying. It just grows and sits there and just like, it's not going anywhere. And the ideas for other music videos, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yet you've exhausted yourself. Do you think you've exhausted yourself because it's the only way you can give yourself the break you need to ask these questions?
Oh, that's a deep question. Um, maybe, probably. I do have a heritage of workaholism, as does the whole American culture. really. Work is important, most important, most important. Um, yeah, maybe. I mean, I hadn't thought of that, but maybe if I didn't totally, utterly burn myself to a completely dysfunctional crisp, I would keep working. Yeah.
Well, then I hope you enjoy your sabbatical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you for your work. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. And, I look forward to whatever you do next, whether that be sit on a beach or create the live show of your dreams.
Thank you, Adam. It's such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And thank you for hosting me again. And I look forward to everything that you're bringing out and talking about and your journey.
Thank you very much. We look forward to having you back to find out what you did.
Okay. It's a
Okay.
deal.
And
Thanks.
thank you, audience, as always. We love having you on these journeys. We really appreciate all the people that comment on our videos. I love hearing what you have to say. I love it when you tell me I'm wrong and I did something wrong. I love all of it. Thank you for being a part of this community, this Truer MU community. Keep liking the videos, keep sharing them. And if there's something you want to see on this show, drop me a line. I'll see if I can make it happen. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.